Some states sell themselves as paradise. New Jersey chose to be a garden, at least in name. It is the Garden State, after all, the official nickname that appears on signs, brochures, and welcome campaigns, the famous Garden State. And the image it sells is cute. Wide highways, suburban neighborhoods with white picket fences, families eating ice cream in the summer, and that light breeze coming in from the Atlantic. But this garden has rotten roots. Behind the shiny shopping malls and middle-class mansions, there is a New Jersey that tourist guides avoid showing. A land where roads collapse, politicians sell positions, and inequality grows in the shadow of potholed overpasses and crowded shelters. This is the New Jersey that Bello Mundo is going to show you now, not the one on postcards, the real one. Number 1. Location and the image sold. New Jersey is squeezed between New York and Pennsylvania on the east coast of the United States. It is small, the fourth smallest state in the country, and densely populated. Nearly 9 million people live in just over 7,000 square miles. This proximity to New York has always been a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, it has brought economic development, jobs, and opportunities. On the other, it has created a dangerous dependency and turned the state into a kind of giant commuter town. New Jersey is proud to be called the Garden State. The nickname comes from the rural areas and farms that still exist in the interior. But the reality is that more than 90% of the population lives in urban and suburban areas, many of which face problems that do not match the bucolic image of the name. The state is also known for its beaches and tourism industry. Atlantic City, with its casinos, was once called the Las Vegas of the East Coast. But even this golden fame has its dark side. The city is now facing one of the state's biggest urban crises. And it is precisely this duality that defines New Jersey. A state that has always sold an image of prosperity and quality of life, but which hides, behind this facade, deep structural problems and an identity crisis that has been dragging on for decades. To understand how we got here, we need to look to the past and discover how corruption became part of the state's political culture. Number 2. History. During the colonial period, the region was the scene of fighting between the Dutch and the English, until the British Crown consolidated its control and distributed land among local elites. Already there, in the 18th century, the power arrangements that would later become familiar began. Concentrated control, personal interests ahead of the common good, and a history of political decisions based on convenience. In the 19th century, New Jersey industrialized rapidly. Cities such as Newark, Paterson, Camden, and Trenton became centers of manufacturing, commerce, and ports. Thousands of immigrants arrived in search of work. But along with growth came another hallmark of the state: institutionalized corruption. Political parties dominated entire cities as if they were fiefdoms. Political bosses decided who would be elected, who would receive public contracts, who would be punished, and who would be protected. During the 20th century, this reputation was cemented. New Jersey became synonymous with political machine. Number 3. The tradition of corruption. If there is one thing that characterizes New Jersey politics, it is not just power games, it is corruption. And that is no exaggeration. It is a fact. It is a number. It is history. Throughout the 20th century, mayors took turns in power for decades, sustained by networks of favoritism, exchange of favors, and embezzlement. Entire cities functioned as modern fiefdoms, where parties ruled with an iron fist. They decided who would be elected, who would win contracts, who would be protected, and who would be discarded. Over time, corruption ceased to be a scandal and became routine. In 2015, a Harvard University study ranked New Jersey, among the 5 most corrupt states in the United States. Almost 10 years later, nothing has changed. In July 2024, Senator Bob Menendez, one of New Jersey's best-known politicians, was sentenced to 11 years in prison for a bribery scheme. The investigation revealed money hidden in clothing, luxury cars, and even gold bars locked inside his home. That's right, gold, in a senator's closet. But he is far from alone. Former governors, mayors, and congressmen have been caught in fraud, theft, vote buying, and suspicious contracts. The big scandals, such as Abscam in the 70s or Bridgegate in 2013, are just the ones that made headlines. What happens outside the spotlight is just as serious. A survey conducted by Fairleigh Dickinson University in 2023 revealed a telling statistic. 80% of people in New Jersey believe their politicians are corrupt. 4 out of 5 residents no longer trust those who are supposed to represent them. And they are not wrong. Between 2002 and 2014, an FBI operation called Bid Rig arrested dozens of politicians, religious leaders, and public officials. It was corruption at all levels. People selling driver's licenses, people trading influence for money, people treating public office as if it were a commodity. And anyone who thinks that was all there was is mistaken. In Camden, a city in southern New Jersey just across the border from Pennsylvania, 3 mayors in a row were arrested for corruption: Angelo Ericetti, Arnold Webster, and Milton Milan. 3 in the same city. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. More recently, in 2024, the former mayor of Camden, Dana Red, was indicted along with George Norcross, one of the most powerful names behind the scenes of the Democratic Party. Norcross never held office, but he wielded more power than many elected politicians. He controlled appointments, contracts, and important decisions. A true behind-the-scenes boss. You can see that the problem in the state isn't one politician or another, right? It's the system. Corruption is part of the way they govern. It's ingrained. It's accepted, ignored, or simply treated as inevitable. Meanwhile, while they line their own pockets, the rest of the state sinks. Number 4. Poverty and inequality. New Jersey loves to present itself as a prosperous state. Well-kept suburbs, trees as far as the eye can see, a strong economy, families walking in clean parks. That's the image they sell, and often people buy it. But that reality isn't for everyone. It exists, yes, but only for those who can afford it. Despite its reputation for wealth, New Jersey hides deep socioeconomic disparities. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the official statistics agency of the U.S. government, between 2019 and 2023, about 9.7% of the state's population lived below the poverty line. It may seem like a small number, but that represents more than 870,000 people facing real difficulties paying bills, feeding themselves, and surviving. And the problem doesn't stop there. Income inequality is one of the most visible marks of the state. The Gini index, used to measure the degree of economic inequality, reveals stark variations between counties. Depending on where you are born, your reality changes completely. In some places, absolute comfort. In others, total abandonment. But perhaps the most shocking statistic is this. According to the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, a research center specializing in racial and economic inequality, the average wealth gap between white families and Black or Latino families in the state is approximately $640,000. $640,000. It's a chasm, an invisible wall that separates opportunities, security, and the future. These inequalities are not just in people's pockets, they are also in their house keys. The homeownership rate among white families is 76.6%. Among Black and Latino families, that number drops to 41% and 40%, respectively. This affects everything: stability, wealth, the possibility of social advancement. In New Jersey, skin color still determines who owns a home and who has nowhere to go. The housing crisis, incidentally, is another painful picture. More than 430,000 families were behind on their rent or mortgage payments at the beginning of 2023. 400,000 families living on the edge, afraid of losing their homes, with no guarantees of anything. And when the roof disappears, all that's left is the street. Number 5. The explosion of homelessness. In recent years, the number of homeless people in New Jersey has skyrocketed. A report by the New Jersey Monitor, a website specializing in local coverage and public policy, found that in 2024, nearly 13,000 people were without a permanent home on the night of the annual census. That number represents more than 9,000 families and a 24% increase over the previous year. The number of people living in tents, temporary shelters, or subsidized hotels grew by more than 2,400 in just 1 year. Experts attribute this jump to a lack of affordable housing, evictions, and high rents. The rate of available rental properties fell from 3.7% to 3.1%. In other words, even those who have some income cannot find a place to live. Children are also being swallowed up by this crisis. The number of homeless families with children has risen by 14%. Today, about 35% of homeless families have no source of income, and almost half of the people in this situation have some kind of disability, whether physical, mental, or related to chemical dependency. Racial inequality is also evident in this scenario. Blacks and Latinos represent more than 40% of the homeless population. The message is clear. In New Jersey, it is not enough to be poor. If you are Black or Latino, the chances of ending up on the street are even greater. In the same state that boasts gated communities with heated swimming pools, there is a silent humanitarian crisis. People sleeping in tents, in cars, on cold sidewalks, children living without an address, and a government that, so far, has not found an adequate response. While the number of homeless people explodes, other signs show that the state is losing control, even when it comes to the basics: roads, transportation, infrastructure, and that's what's coming next. Number 6. The collapse of infrastructure. Driving in New Jersey has become a test of patience and also of suspension, shock absorbers, and your wallet. The state's crisis is not just about politics or scandals. It is also on the ground. Potholed highways, corroded bridges, and overcrowded public transportation are part of everyday life for those who live here. A report by the American Society of Civil Engineers, published in 2025, shows that 22% of New Jersey's roads are in poor or fair condition, and this poor maintenance is costly. On average, each driver spends more than $700 a year on damage caused by potholes and poor pavement. The situation with bridges is also alarming. Nearly 8% of the more than 6,000 bridges in the state are considered structurally deficient. This means that they already show signs of wear and tear and may need to be closed or even pose a risk if not repaired. These figures are the result of many years of neglect. Even with some recent improvements, such as rising from 50th to 34th in the National Road Quality Ranking, New Jersey still ranks below the average for other U.S. states. And what about traffic? The situation is chaotic, according to a survey by the Reason Foundation, an organization that studies public policy in the United States. New Jersey has the worst traffic congestion in the country. Drivers are stuck in traffic for more than 100 hours per year. No other state keeps people in their cars for so long. But the problems don't stop on the roads. Water pipes are old, and leaks are constant. The drinking water supply and treatment system will need more than $8 billion in repairs, according to the engineers who signed the same infrastructure report. Even public schools are crying out for help. Many buildings are old, have leaks, outdated plumbing, ventilation problems, and even the risk of lead contamination. Several are in urgent need of renovation, but funding is not forthcoming. Those who study or work in these places feel the effects of neglect firsthand. New Jersey is nicknamed the Garden State, but what you see in many areas is a garden of cracked concrete, patchwork streets, crowded train tracks, corroded bridges, late buses, and a population tired of living with structures that don't keep pace with modern life. Commuting from home to work or from the suburbs to downtown Newark, for example, can become a daily saga. What should be a simple trip turns into an endurance test. The truth is that New Jersey's infrastructure hasn't just aged, it has collapsed. So have politics, housing, public trust, and so many other pillars of the state. But do you think it's just the physical structure that's crumbling? Of course not. Security is also in free fall. Number 7. Crime. With broken roads, discredited governments, and thousands of people living homeless, New Jersey has created the perfect setting for crime to flourish. And that's exactly what's been happening. Although the state does not have the highest homicide rates in the United States, the numbers are rising in specific categories. In urban areas such as Newark, Trenton, and Camden, reports of violent crime have increased, and residents no longer feel the same sense of security they once did. As we mentioned earlier, Camden, for example, has become one of the strongest symbols of urban decay in the country. This city, once an industrial hub, now faces sky-high homicide rates, drug trafficking, and widespread neglect. Newark, New Jersey's largest city, also faces its own demons. Drug trafficking, organized crime, and street violence are part of everyday life. Its proximity to New York City, which could be an economic and cultural advantage, has instead facilitated illegal drug trafficking and money laundering. But the problem runs deeper. It is systemic. When the population no longer trusts the police because of scandals, when young people grow up without access to quality education or real job opportunities, and when public money that could be invested in social services ends up being diverted by corrupt politicians, crime is no longer the exception. It becomes the rule. It becomes a choice. Or worse, it becomes survival. All of this is happening in a state that, on paper, has everything going for it. New Jersey is strategically located, has resources, and has potential. But without honest governance, social justice, and security, even the most promising place becomes a maze of risk and disappointment. Number 8. The future. The future of New Jersey does not look promising. The problems are too deep for any quick fix, and the population's trust in institutions is in tatters. This makes it even more difficult to implement any change. For starters, it would take more than $8 billion just to meet the most urgent demands for clean drinking water. Then there are the billions needed to repair crumbling highways, bridges, and schools, and just as much to invest in affordable housing, public health, and social programs that actually work. But how can this money be obtained if the political system responsible for managing these resources is considered corrupt by 4 out of 5 residents of the state? The answer is not just money. It is something much more difficult. A real change in political culture, a transformation in priorities. And that takes time, decades perhaps, if it happens at all. That's all for today. But now I want to hear from you. Were you surprised by this hidden side of New Jersey? Did you already know that the situation was so serious? If you enjoy seeing the world from this off-the-beaten-path perspective, stay with us here at Bello Mundo, because there are still many places, much history, and much reality that conventional tours simply ignore. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next video.